In this episode, we talk about my experience with my very first board game convention. We talk about Azul and Reef in the new versus segment, and we end it with a rundown of the new additions to my collection. Hey guys! Welcome back to another episode of On Deck, a podcast about tabletop gaming in the Philippines. I am your host, Glory, and I run the hobby Instagram account The Board Gamer PH, where I post pictures and talk about the games I play with my friends. So in episode 2, we briefly talked about All Aboard XL, a gaming convention that was hosted by my friendly local gaming store, Gaming Library. It was held last May 17 to 19. I, along with my two co-hosts last episode, Celine and Blue, went to All Aboard and it was amazing. First of all, there were a ton of games. Tinanong ko actually si Hans kung magdadala pa ba ako ng games because I know that All Aboard XL, before, gamers brought their own games. So I asked Hans, do I need to bring some games so that I can play with my friends? And sabi niya sa akin, we have a lot of games, don't bring anything. So we sat on a table and we did not stop playing. I was usually tasked to go around the area, look for games that aren't being played, get the game, put it on our table. And it was so seamless, wala kaming downtime at all. Another thing is they had the XL board games. This was actually teased a lot in the Gaming Library Facebook page and also their Instagram account. There was an XL Catan, Slide Quest, Squadro, Corridor, other XL games, Giant Forbidden Island, and a Giant King Domino. It really enticed us to play a game that we won't normally play because sobrang laki niya. This actually made us try Squadro, which I usually ignored because it was an abstract strategy game. Also, the staff of All Aboard XL were all very good in explaining the games and connecting different groups to play with. I know that most of the staff are volunteers, and I really commend Gaming Library for being able to find volunteer staff who are very knowledgeable about the games and were very attentive to the attendees. And finally, of course, the highlight of All Aboard XL was that Eric Lang, the board game designer, was there. So Eric Lang is the designer of Blood Rage, Rising Sun, The Godfather. Actually, nung pagdating ko sa All Aboard, it was the meet and greet time. And sobrang nasayangan kasi hindi ko dala yung Godfather ko, which was a lesser known Eric Lang design. And tinanong ko si Hans, meron ka pa bang Rising Sun? Kasi kung meron pa, I really wanted to buy it just to get Eric Lang to sign the game. So there. So that was All Aboard XL. I'm really looking forward to next year's All Aboard in general. And I think the next convention will be ToyCon. And I'm also looking forward to that. So with that, let's now go to what have I been playing, which are all just games that I played during All Aboard XL. So first is Cabo. Cabo is a simple card game from Bezier Games for 2 to 4 players. So a game of Cabo is played in a series of rounds, and for each round, your goal is to have the least amount of cards. So the least value in your combination of cards. But the problem is you don't know all of your cards and you also don't know the cards of your opponents. But in the course of the round, you get certain cards that allow you to peek at your own cards or to peek at your opponent's cards. You can also swap your cards with the deck or with your opponents. So this also requires a special card. Once you're certain that you have the lowest value, you can call Cabo and your opponents get one more round and you all compare the value of your combination cards. So there are other little rules, but that's basically it. So Cabo was actually Blue's and Celine's favorite during All Aboard. It was a different kind of deduction where you are able to do something to make sure that you do have the lowest combination or your opponent has a higher combination than you do. Nung una, akala ko medyo matagal yung game kasi you need to get to, if someone reaches above 100 points after a series of rounds, the player with the lowest number wins. So this is already accumulated number of points throughout the series of rounds. So akala ko nung una, medyo matagal siya kasi parang ang tagal may makarating sa 100. But once you actually get the hang of the game, or if someone calls Cabo and they weren't the lowest and they get an additional 10 points, I think, or 20, then it becomes a bit faster. Well, I think if you want to house rule it, if you think that it's too long, then you can play up to 80 or maybe even to up to 50 if you just want a short game. For me though, my favorite part in Cabo is when you try to psych your opponents and you make them feel like kasi they need a specific kind of card for them to be able to peek at your cards. Sa una, ikaw, alam mo lang dalawa. And then, pag titignan mo yung iba mong cards, makikita nila na mukhang sure ka na medyo mababa yung iyo. So you try to psych them out and you just call Cabo, even if you're not sure. I've done this 2 times and usually hindi ako nananalo because of it. But it's really fun because you're just trying to psych your opponents out. So there, that was Cabo. After playing it, Celine and I both bought the game. That's a testament of how fun it really is. The next game that we played, because we wanted to introduce it to Celine, was Zateji. I've already talked about this game in episode 2. I played it this time with 3 players instead of the full 4-player capacity. I don't think Celine liked it very much. Yeah, I don't think she liked it very much because she lost. The next game that we played was Stick Stack. So Stick Stack is a dexterity game for 2 to 99 players from Broadway Toys, I think. In this game, you basically have to place sticks on a dish that's held up by a spring so it wobbles. The sticks are colored and the dish is also colored. So when you place the sticks, you'll need to do it in such a way that the new stick you place is not touching a different color. So imagine nyo, pick up sticks, diba? Yung pick up sticks, meron siyang color. So red, green, blue. But imagine the pick up sticks is actually partially colored in green or partially colored in green, blue, and red. And when you place it on top of other sticks or the dish, the stick should not touch any other color that's different from it. If the sticks topple down because of you placing your own stick, then you collect all the sticks that topple down and place it in front of you. And you don't want to have sticks in front of you because those count as points against you. And each stick in front of you at the end of the game is worth 1 point. So when it's your turn, you can get from the sticks in front of you instead. So nababawasan yung points mo. And the object of the game is to have the lowest number of points at the end. But if all of the sticks topple down because of you placing the stick, then you don't place them in front of you. Instead, you get an automatic 5 points counted against you. And you place all those sticks back in the pile. When someone reaches 11 points, the game ends and the person with the lowest points wins. I've actually played this before with the other gaming library curators and it was fun. But I found that the game tends to drag longer just a tiny bit than necessary. Actually, akala mo mabilis lang magkaroon ng 11 points but actually hindi. Matagal siya. We tried it during All Aboard, but the spring was already leaning towards one side, so it was very easy to topple over. So I really hope that the game comes with a replacement spring because the game will be unplayable without that spring. Kasi, I mean, nothing will hold the dish up anymore, and the object nga of the game is to have that dish wobble around so that the sticks that you put topple down. So there, so that was Stick Stack. So the next game that we played is Squadro. Squadro is an abstract strategy game for 2 players from Gigamic. So basically in Squadro, you start with a fleet of 5 ships in front of you, and the object of the game is to have 4 of your 5 ships go across the board and back on your side. But the number of movement of your ships depend on what's assigned to it, so it's printed on your side. It's either 1 space, 2, or 3 spaces. But the thing is, your opponent is on the adjacent corner. Imagine a square board and your opponent is starting in the adjacent corner. So they have their own ships and your ships and their ship will be intersecting. So if both of your ships meet at a certain point or if you're on the way of their movement, they go over your ship and your ship is taken back to the home base. And hindi pare-pareho yung movement spaces ng mga magkakatapat. So you really need to pay attention to their movement spaces to see if on their next move, are they able to go over your ship? And if that's the case, then you have to move that ship. this was actually my personal favorite during All Aboard XL. I initially ignored all Gigamic games because I am not a fan of abstract strategy games. But after playing Squadro, I bought three more. I bought four. I bought Marrakesh, I bought Squadro, Corridor, and Quixo. Because for me, the Gigamic abstract strategy games don't only play really, really well, but they also look so nice. So imagine ko, on a coffee table, and instead of having a set of chess, you have a set of Squadro, and it will really look nice because all the components are wooden and it's really nice. Also, I really fell in love with Squadro because the level of thinking was so deep. You basically have no other objective but to have one up over your opponent. You want to lure them into a trap and you want to avoid any traps that they set out before you. I think abstract strategy might be better with two players in general because the level of thinking where you just need to go one up against your opponent, I think I like that better for abstract strategy. And then finally, the last game that we played during All Aboard is Marrakesh. So Marrakesh is a roll and move area control game for 2 to 4 players by Gigamic also. So the object of the game is to be the wealthiest rug salesperson in Marrakesh, I think. So you start the game with an equal amount of money and an equal number of rugs as the other players. And on your turn, you can turn Assam, the pawn shared by all of you, by 90 degrees, but never on his back. What you do is you move Assam according to your dice roll. So this can be 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in that particular direction. If you land on a free part of the board or on one of your rugs, you don't pay anything. But if you land on your opponent's rug, you pay him or her equal to the number of rugs in the immediate vicinity. So then you end your turn by putting your own rug, which can be on top of other players' rugs. So at the end of the game, the person with the most number of money wins, like in life. First of all, shout out to the person who taught this to us. He was very, very good. Next is we played this with a stranger. So there's a stranger and he was alone and they needed 3 more players to play Marrakesh. And perfect! We were there playing Squadro. And so Celine Blue and I played with him and it was so fun. It was my first time playing with a stranger, guys. It really was my first time. And masaya naman siya. Well, Celine entertained him, so that was okay. The game of Marrakesh is very, very cutthroat, but in a good way. And I think that despite it being this cutthroat, I think that it's a very good gateway game. And I think I'm going to try and literally replace in my collection because Splendor will never leave the collection. I think I will try using this as a gateway game for new players rather than Splendor and Ticket to Ride. We'll see. So those are the games that I played during All Aboard XL. Let's now go to a new segment called the Versus Series. So in this segment, we'll talk about 2 or more games that I feel like fill the same kind of niche. So this essentially combines game feature and snipping time when appropriate, like what we did with Avalon and Resistance in episode 2. So for this Versus series, we are comparing 2 games from Next Move Games, Azul and Reef. In the Versus series, we will evaluate games based on 3 categories: theme, aesthetics, and gameplay. Theme is very subjective for me because my personal taste may not be the same as yours. For example, except Terraforming Mars, I do not like space games. I don't know why. I'm not drawn to it. I find it a bit, tiny bit boring. But so many people I know like space themed games. So this also applies to IP heavy games. So for example, I personally enjoy The Godfather very much because I love the IP. But whenever I introduce it to my friends, narealize ko, marami palang hindi nanonood ng The Godfather. So there, theme for me is very subjective. As for aesthetics, I think that it is not as subjective as theme, but still is quite subjective. So while there are some usual component quality considerations in a game like manipis ba yung cards, chintzy ba yung tokens, kung metal ba yung components, while there are those usual quality considerations, there are still very specific aesthetic criteria for different people. So what looks good for me does not necessarily look good for others. For example, I am not drawn to anime-esque drawings. But I know some people who really like those kinds of artwork, so it's still quite subjective. And finally, gameplay. While the first two considerations initially make me want to buy a game, because yun yung nakikita mo, the gameplay is what usually makes me keep a game. The gameplay has to be engaging enough that I'd want to get it on the table once again. For me, pinaka-importante, of course, is gameplay. We don't buy a game just because it looks good. It has to be fun too. So at the end of the day, it's still all very subjective. Okay, so first let's talk about Azul. So Azul is an abstract strategy set collection game for 2 to 4 players. Azul is a very popular game, so I'm not going to belabor this too much, but basically players take turn drafting colored tiles to place them on the board. This will later on go to a different part of the board. It's where you try to form patterns for points and endgame bonuses. And then Reef. Reef, on the other hand, is an abstract strategy hand management game for 2 to 4 players. The object of the game is to have the most number of points. On your turn, you can either get a card from the deck or play a card from your hand. When you play a card from your hand, you get 2 pieces of coral, whatever is printed on that card, and you place it on your personal board. You can place the coral on any place on your board, even on top of other corals you've previously placed. You can also fulfill the pattern shown on the card you just played after placing these corals. So, whether or not you fulfill the pattern is up to you, it's optional. So, fulfilling a pattern earns you points, and you can fulfill the pattern more than once, as long as there are no common coral pieces. For me, Reef is medyo engine building because you want to make sure that you get to maximize the points that you earn from fulfilling a particular pattern in the card. So first, let's talk about the theme. Azul is about building or decorating a wall using Moorish tiles. So basically, I think the King of Portugal went to Alhambra and saw the Moorish tiles and wanted to build their own in Portugal. The next is Reef, is about building a coral reef. For me, the theme goes to Azul because I've been to Alhambra. I know how beautiful it is. And I don't know why, maybe because I'm not really a water person. So the theme of building a wall appeals to me more than building a coral reef. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-environment. It's just that I relate to decorating more than I do with building a coral reef. So theme goes to Azul. Next is aesthetics. The components of Azul is composed of mainly ceramic tiles and they are beautiful. The patterns, I just want to buy big sized Azul tiles to decorate my wall because really it is so beautiful. Reef, on the other hand, is composed of plastic Lego feeling pieces that don't even look like coral, honestly. Azul, yes, they look like mahjong tiles rather than actual wall tiles, but the feel of the components, the tiles, and the patterns printed on the tiles are just so beautiful that I have to give the aesthetics consideration to Azul. Finally, for the gameplay, Azul's gameplay reminds me of Jaipur, the 2-player game. So basically, you get some colored tiles even if you need less. You then place this on your board in an optimal way to score the most number of points possible. So where you place the tiles initially is very important because you don't want to waste a turn. So your consideration here and your dilemma basically is whether or not you want to finish immediately, meaning you pick the tiles that will immediately make you finish one row, or you try to hold off and you just get what you need without finishing that row because it will be worth more points later on. Reef, on the other hand, feels more like an engine building game since you want to play cards when you can actually fulfill the pattern. You don't want to play that card when you know that there may be a way for you to fulfill that pattern or to fulfill that pattern multiple times when you play that card. So you want this to develop into a kind of chain where no turn is wasted and you just get corals to fulfill a particular pattern. Kaya siya nagiging engine building kasi parang paulit-ulit ka lang na gusto mo, pag binaba mo yung card, mafulfill mo din yung pattern niya. So you need to arrange your coral pieces in such a way that the pattern and the cards printed on what's in your hand, you'll be able to fulfill all of them. So medyo engine building. So even if Azul won the theme and aesthetics category, I must give the gameplay consideration or qualification to Reef because I love engine building games. I love thinking of how do I optimize the placement of my corals on my personal board so that no turn is wasted later on. Gusto ko yung fine, mag-waste ako ng turn ngayon, the next turn, but then after my third turn, no turn is wasted anymore. I really love that about Reef. Even though the components could be better and it doesn't really look like coral pieces, Reef is staying in my collection. I've actually sold Azul after my second play of Reef because even if Azul is the better looking game, it's the more popular game, I just enjoy Reef much, much more. And some of my friends agree with me too. Although, isa sa mga kalaro ko, sobrang gusto niya yung Azul. But I think for the type of players that my friends are, they will enjoy Reef much, much more. So with that, let's now go to the next new segment. I want this new segment to be the segment where I talk about all the new games I've purchased because this is something that I usually find very interesting with other podcasters or YouTubers. And I'm sure many listeners can relate to this itch or sickness, okay? So we'll call this segment BGAS or Board Game Acquisition Syndrome. This is something I copied from the podcasting community actually, where they have this syndrome called GAS or Gear Acquisition Syndrome. So here it's Board Game Acquisition Syndrome. So yes, I am very much afflicted with both BGAS and GAS, sadly. So why do I find this interesting? One, we're in the Philippines, and although Gaming Library and actually all of the friendly local gaming stores in the Philippines have done a very good job over the years in getting games in as quickly as they can and as much as they can, it's still not like we have an Amazon where one click of a button and we get the latest game that Tom Vassell is talking about, right? It's not like that. It's a bit of a struggle. And also, number two, I find it interesting because people's tastes tend to be different. What I like playing doesn't necessarily what you like playing. But I still believe that there are intersecting games that are essential games. And if you usually hear someone talking about a particular game, or if you usually hear someone wanting to get their hands on a particular game, then it's usually worth it. It's usually one of those essential games. So that's why I find this type of segment interesting. Also, I won't be specifying each and every friendly local gaming store where I get my games, but I'm just going to mention all of them now so that I don't need to keep on mentioning them. So, first, of course, is Gaming Library. I've always mentioned Gaming Library. I believe that Gaming Library still has the best collection in terms of getting new gamers into the hobby. Next is Geekbox PH. I've just recently discovered this store. They usually don't keep a lot of stock, so kailangan mabilis ka kung gusto mo talaga yung game. But they're always very attentive. They also give me recommendations, and sila actually yung reason kung bakit ko nalaman na sobrang love ko ang Raiders of the North Sea. Neutral Grounds is also very location specific. Whenever I'm in Green Hills or in Centris, I definitely make sure to check out Neutral Grounds. Fortress, usually, sila yung mas nauuna. But yun nga, same as Geekbox, they're usually just limited. They have a limited number per game, but their collection is quite widespread. So those are the friendly local gaming stores that I usually get my games from. So I usually always try to check gaming library first because first of all, I'm quite loyal to them because I benefit from their loyalty program. I built this loyalty reward over the years and I really want to make sure that I maximize it. I also know a couple of people over there, so I'm able to coordinate delivery when I need to. But the same goes for Geekbox PH. They're very amenable, or they're very flexible in terms of delivery, and you can just tell them, okay, I want it delivered now or later or whatever. So there. So let's now go to the actual games I bought, right? Okay. So first, during All Aboard, I bought Marrakesh, Squadro, and Corridor. And then I also bought Quixo. I also got Newton because I've been wanting to get a Euro game. So I checked Coimbra, Newton, and Teotihuacan. And I saw that a lot of people really like Newton, so I got that. I also got the Mansions of Madness Streets of Arkham expansion. Streets of Arkham is one of the big box expansion. I know Horrific Journeys is also a big box expansion, but I've been reading from BGG that Streets of Arkham is the more value for money big box expansion. So I decided to get that instead. I also got a chance to score the Gods of Asgard expansion for Blood Rage. I've been looking for Blood Rage expansions for some time. I know they were available here, but when I decided that I wanted to get the expansions, wala na sila. So I got a chance to score the Gods of Asgard. I'm still looking for the other expansion, but I'll settle for the Gods of Asgard for now. Next, I got the Game of Thrones, the Iron Throne game. This is different from the Game of Thrones game that is my favorite board game of all time. The Game of Thrones, the Iron Throne, is more of a negotiation game. It's really an offshoot from the Cosmic Encounter series. It's not dudes on a map, it's really negotiation and betrayal. I love Cosmic Encounter, but again, space theme, right? So I decided to get the Game of Thrones version of Cosmic Encounter. I've been hearing mixed reviews. Actually, of course, they'll be comparing both games, right? I've been hearing mixed reviews. Some people say it's Cosmic Encounter fixed. Some people are saying that it has nothing on Cosmic Encounter. Like Tom Vassell, of course, Cosmic Encounter, one of his favorite games. Of course, he's not going to say that this replaces Cosmic Encounter. I just wanted to try it because of the IP. I also bought the expansion because the expansion expands the number of players to up to 7 players. And then next, I got the Chronicles of Crime board game with with the VR glasses. I really need to get that VR glasses. So, like I said, I haven't been having the best of luck with whodunit kind of games. I didn't like Deadline, I didn't like Detective, but people are claiming that Chronicles of Crime is actually very good. So, when I saw that one of my FLGS has it, I instantly got the game with the VR glasses. I also got No Thanks because it's been reprinted and I'm always in the hunt for really good filler games like For Sale. So I got No Thanks. I also got the Madame expansion for Time Stories. I'm so excited. It's supposed to wrap up the whole series and Celine has already played it with her siblings and I am so jealous. But I don't want to play Madame already. I want to finish my play of Brotherhood of the Coast and Prophecy of Dragons before I end my Time Stories adventure with Madame. Because that's how the makers created it to be. And I also got Raptor. Raptor is a two-player game that I've been dying to get my hands on. I've actually considered getting it from Amazon because whenever there's a game that I really, really want, but it's not here, I usually get it from Amazon and I just get it shipped here. So I've been wanting to get Raptor, but I've always just had that belief na magkakaroon si gaming library ng Raptor. And nagkaroon nga siya. So there, so I got Raptor. It has baby dinosaurs. So I really want to introduce this to younger players. and see whether the theme will actually entice them to play a board game. So that's it for episode 4 of On Deck. Thank you so much for listening. Since you have a partial snapshot of my current collection, if you want me to talk about a particular game, or if you have any other comments, questions, or violent reactions, shoot me an email at theboardgamerph@gmail.com. You may also reach me via direct message at facebook.com/theboardgamerph or Instagram at theboardgamerph. Please also do smash that subscribe button and or leave us a comment or rating on iTunes. Otherwise, have a great week ahead and catch us again here on Deck. Okay, thanks. Bye.